All right.
Thank you. With the quorum present, I'd like to call this meeting of the Co-op Budget Committee to order at 7 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Co-op Budget Committee, which normally occur on the fourth Thursday of each month. The agenda and meeting notice for this meeting were posted more than 24 hours in advance on the SAU website and physically posted at the SAU office, HBMS and HBHS. I would like to introduce myself, Darlene Mann, and the Budget Committee members present for this evening's meeting, which are Dave Flynn, Ryan Rader, Raul Blanchet, Matt McGuire, and Cindy Van Conant. Tom Enright and Lauren Rydstrom have excused absences for this month's meeting, and I would like to introduce and thank Kelly Sealy, our BA, for her attendance and participation in tonight's meeting, and also for the walkthrough of the high school that she gave to Budget Committee members. It was really helpful and thorough review of the building. We haven't had that in a good long time, so it was a good overview, so I appreciate that. If you could all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Where's the
Where's the
flag? Oh my gosh. We'll pretend it's where it's always
the flag is in its normal place.
Over there, right. To the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I guess it was taken down as some summertime cleaning is taking place. That's so funny. Tonight's meeting observer, I think I switched, yes, is Dave. So I'd appreciate that this evening, and hopefully by the end of the meeting, I'll remember to ask you about what your observations are. We tend to rush right to the motion to adjourn and sometimes forget first the feedback. So can move on to approval of minutes from our May meeting. Need. And Matt, what was the date?
23rd?
Was it the 23rd?
I think.
Yeah, May 23rd.
Okay, so Raul submitted some track changes after Matt distributed the draft, so I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion.
From Raul, seconded by
Brian.
Any questions, comments, input? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes as amended? Unanimous? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 0. Thank you. Seeing no public, we can jump right ahead, getting faster and faster to the general business portion of our agenda. We'll start with a financial overview and update from Kelly.
So in your packet, excuse me, you had the latest revenue and expense report, and we are in a better position. Every month we get a little bit better, and I anticipate that we'll probably end the year a little bit better than what you see in front of you. I'm going to give Amy all the credit on this one. She has a couple of special ed expenses that didn't play out as anticipated, so that has really helped our numbers. However, the delay in getting the 2 vans that we were going to use for vocational transportation, that has cost us, because we budgeted to have the vans, which is a lower expense than using Hollis Transportation. So that has brought us down a little bit, but the vans should be delivered literally any day now. So.
Okay, and when we looked at the FY20 budget, we incorporated we were on the same trajectory as what was in this budget.
Yes,
anticipating the use of the
right,
vans.
exactly.
Quick question on those vans. Do they have any special equipment? And that's why they're taking long.
No, the reason it was a delay was there was a fire in the production facility down south, wherever that happens. And it was just a matter of getting, that reset up, so to speak, and that was our delay. So they should be delivered very soon. I don't think there were anything huge.
So basically, as I was reviewing the meeting minutes, I noticed that Andy had promised to do the best he could to compensate try to find more savings in lieu of the $98,000 that was actually passed at the district meeting. So I see that at the last meeting we had a projected amount for the unreserved fund balance of about $70,000. And right
Yeah.
now it's what, about 152?
Right, but that's usually, I mean, I think we've projected, was it 200,000 to
200.
give back to the taxpayers, so we're falling short. And I don't think his comments were really related to FY19 so much as FY20. It was
Okay.
where he would
Yeah.
try to find that, because FY19 has been a tough year.
But if you would have had the bands in place, and it probably would have been closer to 200?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Right, that's the reason that we went with the 2 vans, because Hollis Transportation is a higher expense than going with those vans.
Right, and so then, looking at next year's budget, we have an increase because of the contract, an increase in transportation.
Yes.
Just generally because of the new contract.
Right,
But that, again, assumes that we have
right.
savings.
We left the
because we're
budget
using-
exactly the same in FY20 as we did this year.
And so
So-
I know there was an issue, I think, brought to the governing board with regard to the ownership of Hollis Transportation.
Well, I think that's, I don't know that everything's been signed on the dotted line at this moment. in
Okay,
time.
but whatever ends up happening with Hollis Transportation, the contract remains in place as is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And so
yes.
no renegotiation, no.
No, as far as I know, the
No.
sale is going to happen. It's more on the seller's side as to the
Yeah.
controversy. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to stand by the contract that was already agreed upon.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay, good.
For 3 years. And then we'll
Yeah.
see.
Right.
Yeah.
And then get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, well, I think this was the first year with that transportation contract, there was even a competitive, well, there was
Yes.
even a second bidder.
Yes.
I don't know, you could
Since
argue
I've been here,
competitive or not.
Yeah, right.
So, who knows, 3 years from now, maybe the two, I don't know,
Yeah,
kind of movement each way, you never know
sure.
how things will
Yeah,
end up.
You
so,
don't, right.
okay.
Can you elaborate a little further on the controversy or on the ongoing?
I don't know the
potential
details of
change?
it. I just,
Oh, no, there was just
Yeah.
a buyer for Hollis Transportation, so we had contracted with the current owners. And
Yeah,
then when
okay.
you have a new
But there
person
was
come
no,
in.
Yeah,
There's some-
for
contract.
example, no
Yeah.
rumor that they're going to sell the company and.
oh, no, 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 no.
No,
It's
that was,
just,
so, and my
Well,
brain,
they partnered, they're basically I don't know how you call it, a partner.
Yeah.
Of Student Transportation America now.
right, right.
It's
So they're going
not-
to use the same name,
It's a
Hollis
major national
Transportation.
company, right, and like local.
Yep, they're national.
So
A
the
lot of
concern is that they may not be as, give us a in-town discount or anything like that, right?
After 3 years,
Right,
who knows?
okay,
We're getting that discount for the next 3 years.
good. Local discount, right?
They are doing some bus upgrades and some upgrades to the
Yes.
bus barn.
Yes,
And I think, as far as I know, they were talking to the current drivers.
right.
Yeah, the bus barn, that's where a lot of the questions were, because they're gonna like lease or rent from the Hollis Transportation family, the bus barn, because they don't actually own that property.
oh,
So that's where you were saying where that's between them versus.
Yeah.
So this may be a deal where they're just the operator of the service and using somebody else's infrastructure.
Exactly. I
Okay.
think I think the company, from some personal research that I did, it seems like they go in and buy up kind of mom and pop. But they have, the couple advantages are, they have full-time recruiters for drivers, so we may not have as much driver shortage. And I think, I'm not sure what they pay the drivers, but hopefully they are able to pay more to get more, or they give them benefits, which they may not get, in a small company. So I think overall, the driving situation should be better.
Right.
And they can do what they consider cross
Yes.
rostering. So like if somebody's in Milford, typically drives in Milford, but because they work for that company, if we're short, they may be able to have somebody pick up in hours.
Which means in 3 years from now. That'd be interesting.
There's, I don't know, 10 or 12 districts that are using them and have kept using them. I mean,
Positive.
they haven't lost any customers in the area. They've kept everybody, so they must do something right.
There's plenty of time to do our homework and to learn from that, right?
Right.
Yep.
It'll be a different bidding situation.
It will,
probably,
very
next-
different.
In 3 years. We'll be preparing
Right.
that a little bit early.
Yeah, and we'll have 3 years of history to understand
Right.
whether this was a good thing or a bad thing, or somewhere in the middle.
So also attached to the revenue and expense report was a listing of stipends.
Yep.
So these are the FY '20 stipends. Were there I don't recall.
Yes, there were some in,
increases.
yep, in the budget, FY20 budget.
Were they, I'm sorry, were they additional positions, like newly stipended?
Not too many of them. I think the high school didn't have anything new, but the middle school, I think, maybe had two new positions, but most of these are increases
Percentage-wise, what
too.
was increased? Do we know?
I just don't-
I don't have that off the top of my head, sorry.
Yeah, I can take a look, because I don't recall
So
either.
I
the new
don't-
budget
think it
is
was a lot.
202?
Mhm.
Okay.
That was for the high school.
Yeah.
And then 50,200 for the middle school.
And what's the roles, I guess, as far as for coaches, like, like say a teacher in the district wants to coach versus an outside person, does it go to the teacher first? And then
Yes, the teacher gets to know about that position and apply for it first. And if that doesn't fill, then it goes outside.
It's a separate contract
Mhm.
outside of their normal.
Yes,
And then the stipends, no changes or anything?
right.
Okay. Are there any teams, these are specifically teams, not clubs, so are there any teams right now that have any non-stipended, like every coach, every team is represented?
I think so,
Like we
yeah.
didn't, okay.
I'm not aware of any that,
Probably the unified teams are probably the newest ones we added.
Yeah.
I would assume.
right, well, the middle school
Oh,
lacrosse.
middle school lacrosse,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, that was this
Yeah.
year.
So are there any
Mhm.
people that have multiple?
Yeah, I
roles?
think there are a couple that
Yeah.
do,
Some of them do different seasons.
yeah. Maybe not the same season, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so.
Like
over
maybe
the course
somebody
of the whole
does
year.
track and cross country because they're
Okay.
opposite
Right.
seasons,
Right.
but they're, both running, so.
Right, or maybe football and baseball or something like that.
Right. Great, thank you for including those. The other piece of the financial documents included an update on the public hearings at the June school board meeting.
Yeah, that was just the trust information that I presented for the school board to vote on, which, for whatever reason.
So if
I
everyone
don't-
remembers, we pulled money in the expendable trust for, say, special education, maintenance, and the athletics trust. And in order to spend any money from those trusts, there needs to be a public hearing that discusses the purposes and intended uses of those funds. And especially for the athletics trust fund, it's like, we do it, I think we used to actually do it semi-annually, but now it's become an annual.
Yeah, since I've been
Mhm. Yeah, it
BA,
was a while ago.
It's, yeah, it's annual, definitely, and we're budgeting for all the dollars now, as opposed to before it was more a need-based expense.
Right, right. So, I did notice on the athletic trust that we do have a balance in the trust fund.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if that is money that has are we saving for an intended big purchase? Would we anticipate putting it towards something for the field? Would we-
Right. So if you recall, there was one year, a couple back, that we compromised on $17,500 to leave as a balance. So that's part of that balance. The rest of how it got to be that number is really just differences in, okay, we think it's going to cost this
Right.
much, but it really came out to be this much.
Right.
And then interest, we are getting interest on that account. So that has accumulated to about $41,000. And correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, but they decided that they would hold on to that and see what needs the field might need that
Yeah.
doesn't have another funding source.
Right.
So that amount is inside the fund and cannot be, it's just there.
Yes,
there. If it were-
just,
There.
it sits there gathering interest.
Okay.
Right, and so, and again, if there was any, if if anyone wanted to use it, if there was a recommended use, it would have to be, have a public hearing and
Right,
discuss what that use
and
is.
the idea was that if there's something that we didn't budget for that breaks or, you know, that a need that was unexpected, that we'd have some amount of money there to cover that kind of expense. And that's why there is a balance there.
Can that go to a public hearing for information or for even the public?
It's for, it's a public hearing for information to gain feedback, and then the board makes a decision based
Okay,
on
so
the result of the public hearing, and then
Right.
they're the arbiter of
Right.
the approval of releasing the funds.
And I
So it's
don't
really
believe,
public endorsement in a
Right,
sense.
they
Well,
can't-
it's a public hearing, it's an
Yeah.
explanation of, this is
information,
how we're gonna spend it,
total
people can come and say, I don't
transparency.
think you should spend it that way, I think you should spend it that way, you know, and then the board hears feedback and makes a decision accordingly, so.
So it's-
If they hear something compelling, they could say, oh, maybe I'll blah, 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 we'll, you know, change the
Right.
recommendation or something. I don't think that's ever happened.
I can't recall any time, no.
But, so, okay. Great, thank you for providing that. Sometimes that one just kind of, it's like, it's that one of those end of the year
Right,
items.
right, and I
we're
don't
like,
know
oh,
that
that's
I've-
right, we do that.
Yeah, and I don't
so.
know that I've ever provided that for you guys.
No, it's
so
a
I
really
thought-
nice
yeah.
format and everything, so that-
By the
that's
way,
great.
in watching some of these reports here, they're very nicely done, nice
Oh,
format,
great.
readable.
Great, thank you.
So thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Just to really quickly, just mentioning on the maintenance trust, because we touched on it a little bit during the tour. There was a replacement of a cable here at the middle school. It came up because I couldn't remember if it was a middle or high school repair that needed to take place, so
What kind of cable?
it's,
It's called a traveling cable.
Is it the elevator?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tra-
yeah. It's the last one, like, ever made as a replacement part, and we're lucky enough to get it, so.
Yes.
At what point is there a plan to change it, update it?
Well, that traveling cable bought us 3 to 5 years, assuming that something else major doesn't, you know, conk out. So you will be seeing that on the budget. I mean, it's in the facilities assessment that you'll see, but we're going to let it go another year or so. But in the meantime, we're also going to review to see if we want to get like this is a lift, a Lulu lift, so we need to evaluate whether we want to replace it with another lift, or maybe we should be replacing it with a full-blown elevator. So we need to evaluate that.
Is that in the capital improvements plan?
Yep.
And how much was the
We'll be
cable?
hearing about that shortly.
10,030.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be a lot more than that.
Well,
No.
The last one.
Yeah, it's the last one ever.
Somebody dug it out of the warehouse or something.
Well, there's a
Some
$5 cable.
WD-40 on it.
Yeah, blow off the dust, right.
Shiny and everything, okay, great. I just wanted to mention that I did include, thank you, does anyone have any more questions on any of those financials? Okay. I included a copy of our audit from last year. So if you remember, the audits are like in arrears, so we're moving into an audit cycle over the summer for this current year that's ending in a couple of days. The audit report that we have is for where we ended last June. So it is, again, not something I anticipated talking about tonight, just wanted you all to have it, consider it, and if we would like to have Tim Green or another member of the Robertson Green accounting staff come and talk about that audit at a later meeting, we can certainly do that. You don't have to tell me now, we can discuss it now, you can tell me in preparation for the August meeting. I think that would probably be a good one. If we are going to invite them to that one, so it's before we kind of get into budgets and things like that, and they'll have just concluded. They won't have information on the current audit they'll do this summer, but they
Right.
would have just completed
The field work,
the
yeah.
work over the summer by the end of August. So we have had them, I don't know that we've had them come every year, every other
No,
year.
Yeah.
So,
Can they summarize the bottom line up front,
that's enough.
results from from the audit and just send it via an email or something like that instead of having to have them come in and?
I think you
That
would
is-
say that is what.
That is it, that's the
Oh,
audit
okay, then
report.
we're done.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, in the past, we've had some members that felt very strongly, and so I'll definitely talk to Tom and Lauren and get their feedback, and we can decide for August. So feel free to just let me know.
Yeah, I think once you get a chance to read through it,
Yeah,
then if you
yeah.
have questions or.
Mm-hmm.
There's no July meeting.
There is no July meeting, and we're moved the August meeting to the 5th Thursday of August, because there are 5 Thursdays in the month of August, so we gave ourselves in a little extra week, and it lines up with when school starts and things like that, so. Didn't we?
Oh, it's the fifth Thursday, yeah,
Yeah,
the
fifth
29th,
Yeah.
okay, yep, gotcha. Yep.
I just wanted to mention in passing as well, I got an update on one of the recent bills up in Concord. House Bill 415 allows, now requires that any vote to move a district to SB2 must take place at the annual meeting. It cannot be done by a ballot vote. So I can find the text on that. It was signed into law, and now any vote on that. It's a petition we've received, I think,
Yeah.
for 4 years running. Now, if that were to come up again, the vote would be required by law to take place at our district meeting.
Great, yeah.
Would-
Funny time.
Would removal from SB2 also be at the annual meeting?
That's a good question.
That's a great question, and I'm not sure if it was addressed by that House bill, so I will get the link
What
and
was the,
share
House Bill number?
415.
Yep, I will look into that.
That would be great.
Were any of our
415.
representatives involved in that particular bill?
I do believe there were some local representatives involved in that bill.
You said
Okay.
415?
They've been trying to do a couple of different things. One of the things was do it just like apportionment and not do it for 5 years.
So
Bring
the
it back for 5
other
years.
bill that did not pass was one that would have, the way apportionment currently stands now is once we've had a change to an apportionment formula, it remains in place for 5 years. There was a bill wending its way through the legislature that would have allowed a vote to maintain an existing formula like that. An action to do that would have enabled it to stay in place for 5 years. That was deemed inexpedient to legislate, and we're back to kind of where we are. So it's a vote to change it. A change in the formula will make it last for 5 years. No action or maintaining it is then it becomes like an annual endeavor. Potential for change, annual potential for change, I should say. So I think those are the two. Oh, and there was one more. I don't have the details, but I did read an article that there were some positive changes to state aid and the state aid
Yes.
calculations.
Right, yes.
So
Yes.
one of them would most immediately affect Brookline because it was to return stabilization grants back to the levels they were at, I think we're at 3 or 4 years ago, because there's a law in place that was reducing stabilization aid by 4% annually for 25 years. I think we were through 3 years of that. So the state aid, the recalculation of state aid was moving toward putting the stabilization grants back to where they were. I think there were also some other anticipated changes. I don't know what the details of those are. But Matt looks like he just whipped some documentation out because he had the legislators.
But did that actually pass?
I was under the impression it had.
Do we have the number?
Do we have the
Well,
number?
Assuming that, I don't know if these were the numbers for that particular House bill, but
Ooh.
that's
Okay.
over a 2-year.
Yeah, over
that's
2 years.
old.
So if the information
If
that Matt
that's-
has is correct and passed, over a 2-year period, Brookline would see in total across all districts, just under $850,000 more in aid, and Hollis.
That's the number that I've been seeing.
Hollis is at about 200,000. So Hollis had no part in any kind of stabilization grants or anything like that. So between the two, it's $1 million, but again, 850,000 of it is, again,
Yeah,
both
over
over
two-
2
over 2
years,
years.
over 2 years. And that would be the impact across all districts. So,
That's pretty significant.
where did you get, was this from the DOE website?
No, one of the.
I think the first year's like a couple of 100,000 and like
Really?
600,000 the second year.
Wow. Just gonna have another district I'm interested in, so, great, thank you for sharing that, I appreciate it. So those are some, some just little highlights. Cindy, moving on to the school board update.
As I mentioned to Darlene earlier, I haven't been here, so I haven't been to 2 of the meetings. But at the last board meeting, they approved a construction or contract for the fields, and the right-of-way issue has been resolved. Those
Okay.
are the 2 main things that I think that you're interested in.
Okay, because I think as a result of the, we did see a copy of draft minutes from the last board meeting, and I think the right-of-way was still an issue, so.
They had a special meeting this week, actually, and it has
Okay.
been resolved.
Is there any additional information you can share on a financial impact of that resolution?
I wasn't in the non-public,
Okay.
so I don't
Oh,
know
it was
100,
non-public. Okay.
the minutes should be out in
Okay.
in a couple of days.
All right, I can send a quick note over and just see
Yeah,
what the impact was. So as a result of that resolution, construction can begin?
yes, as far as I know,
The
yes.
contract has been signed.
It's been
Contract
signed,
is signed.
the contract has been signed with the company, and the right-of-way contract agreement has been signed.
Okay, and the company the district chose,
Was Quirk.
I sent everybody all of those.
Yeah, so theirs actually came in a little bit, I had the motion here, I was gonna, so the motion was that to approve the contract for Quirk Construction for the construction of the turf field at the Hollis Brookline High School in the amount of $1,457,000, contingent upon some required permits outlined, but that's all been also done since this meeting. We have all the permits. So yeah, they came in a little under the 1.6, but you always have some overrun here and
Yeah,
there, so we'll
yeah.
see. But we're excited, finally. We're going to cut trees down.
So obtaining the right of ways,
Yeah, is that gonna,
obtaining the right of ways, will that has a financial impact on additional cost?
Yeah.
What was the issue? It's a quick answer. What was the issue with the right of way?
I don't know all the details. I guess there was a right-of-way across the piece of the property that we were going to put the field on.
Oh, somebody previously had a right of way?
Yes, so.
Tom knew quite a bit about it, but apparently it was even the people before the current owners. They had some kind of right-of-way. So we just, felt that it needed to be resolved before we move forward. And they've been in negotiation with the owner, owner.
So it was a
of the
right-of-way for access to like the Beaverbrook property that abuts.
Okay, I was gonna say there's
the
nothing
lake.
back there except Beaverbrook, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So they have
yeah.
right away from their property to Beaverbrook,
Yes, yeah.
and that went smoothly? But what was the cost of that? You don't know yet?
We don't
I mean,
have.
minimal, or was it?
I'll send a note over. and
Yeah,
see
like
what
they
information
they
we can
just
get.
did the special meeting, I wasn't here Tuesday night.
Sorry.
Again, I know what the lawyers originally were trying to do with it, but I don't have the final number.
Yeah, and it was a non-public session, so,
Yeah.
although I'm sure once it's signed and agreed to, it can be shared, but I
Yeah.
understand.
And Andy's out of town this week, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, yeah, we haven't, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send him a note, and then we'll see where that ended up.
so if,
But even, I mean, I don't know, we'll have to ask Andy, I don't want to speak for Andy. I just assume that any cost is going to come out of the money.
So even
that
when
we
you add up
already have.
everything, including things like that, it's still gonna come under the
Yeah,
original estimate?
And actually, I think they voted that the cost of the easement would not come out
Oh,
of
okay.
the bond. They didn't want it tied up with the interest and all of that. So,
oh, okay,
Okay,
makes sense.
good to
Yeah.
hear.
as far as the field size goes, do you know, is it going to be full regulation for all sports? Because I
Yes.
kind of heard that for
Yes.
lacrosse, it was going to
I
be
know,
smaller.
we've
That's been
answered that
fixed?
question
Okay.
900 times over.
All right. So-
We've had
901.
we've had everyone, confirm that, yes, it is.
Okay.
Because I know, I guess the main question was because they changed high school girls lacrosse field size within a certain couple years while this has been going on as well. So everybody's
Oh.
concerned that we didn't, but we are going to have the same.
Full-size fields.
Full-size
What is the
field.
largest field, soccer or?
I think
It's
the
actually girls lacrosse
Girls
now.
lacrosse is larger than boys lacrosse?
Yes.
Now, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
No.
And at the board, just because you may hear some, the middle school is adjusting their schedule.
Oh,
They're changing their schedule, kind of, they've been trying to do it for a while to update it similar to the high school, not the exact same as the high school. But because of some of the special ed, which I can't go into detail because I don't understand, but special ed rules about the access for some of the special ed children to general education was part of the reason, and we've been looking at it for a while now. So they did vote to try to work on a finalization on it after our board meeting, but it should change this coming year, as far as I
They
know.
didn't start and finish time in school day?
No, it's just an adjustment of the schedule within,
Oh,
they've
so-
always had that 7 and 8 period, and now they're gonna try to do, they had what they called the waterfall, where if you had it one day, then you had it at a different time the next day, so that if a child learns at a different timing. But the new schedule, it goes closer to the high school. It doesn't have the exact, but they will have long blocks and short blocks. There are some children that come to the high school now for some courses, and that helps that. It helps the special ed side of it, which is really the main, I think, driver
Oh,
to it.
going to high school, that's
Oh, and so there was no effect to the contract, no sidebars required, it all fit the contract language, and, okay, there we are, excellent. What, are we in the third year this year? Wait, what year are we in that? No, this is the second year.
This is the second year.
Next
'cause-
year. The
Yeah, because we're not
FY21 is the
negotiating this
third
fall.
year.
We're-
It's the
yeah,
following.
we've got one more year.
Okay.
I think those are probably the only.
The only other question, just robotics, was there a decision made with, I think I saw the Windy Hill architect
Yes.
included in the meeting
did.
package, so they engaged
Yeah,
Windy Hill.
They did do that,
as the
and that got
designer.
approved as, also, so they're gonna come in and try to do some of the work. Actually, the architect's gonna come first, I believe. And again, I apologize, because I wasn't at the meeting.
You would step that game up.
I know.
So it's just gonna be, probably end up being something that is not not completed by the start of the school
That's
year?
likely going to happen. It's my understanding that I'm purchasing a storage container like we did at the high
Excellent.
school.
Mhm.
And much of the equipment will be stored into that while we do work on the current
Mhm.
lab right now.
Mhm.
But before any of that happens, we need to have a meeting with the architect,
Yeah.
which is scheduled for July.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we'll know more once.
Yeah, just kind of getting there,
Yeah.
at least, going through the process.
The motion that they had was Windy Hill Associates at a cost not to exceed $8,000. Total cost of the proposal is not to exceed $18,000. Source of funding is a private donation of amount of $5,000 and the warrant article approved for annual. So they got an additional $5,000 donated toward it.
Okay,
which was-
so.
which was
so the n-
specified for
So
that.
of the 26 you just were talking about, right?
The 26
Wait, you said 8 and 18?
Yeah,
total.
total
5
18.
of that is a donation, and the rest.
And the other
13
13
will
is
come out
coming,
of the
so then the
98.
other, so that leaves 85.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you-
and I think the only, I mean, I did watch the meeting, and I think the only concern in that Andy's layout of how he, expected to spend that was the storage thing. There was a difference as whether it should have been bought or whether it should be rented. And we own the one up there, and it seems like
Oh, okay.
that, so they were gonna look at that cost.
But
I think was what-
just like a race car, you could use it to advertise sponsors.
Exactly.
Good point.
Put it out on the side out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right down in town square, they look bad.
And we'll put a camera on it to make sure that that's projected worldwide.
They did, I can't remember.
As part of the website.
I think Andy
As
mentioned
part of the
that we did
website.
hire the tech person.
Oh, we did, okay,
They did
good.
hire a tech person. They're
Oh, great.
en route, and they're going to work with
Oh, great,
Andy and Windy Hill to
Okay.
do the.
Right.
fantastic.
Come
Okay,
on.
good. And then for the summer, do you, as a board, do you do goal setting or just take a month off and meet in
No,
August? or
we're
you're
meeting
all the way
in, we're
through?
meeting in July. Yeah, we don't usually, I guess that was, we were looking at it because you
Yeah.
guys did, but
Mhm.
our board said no, they want a meeting in July, so we're having a meeting in July.
Well, alrighty then.
That's special.
Special. Any other questions for the school board? Okay, next item, thank you, Cindy, I appreciate it. I feel like every time I look at your board packages, they're getting lengthier and lengthier. This one was almost 200 pages.
Yeah, that's why
What
I don't print at home. I print
package?
I print the first of it and maybe the principal
It's
report.
like, wow, there's a lot of stuff in this one. Okay, so the next item we
God
have is
bless
our
those people who
annual.
take meeting minutes at your meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, she does it by the video, so, yeah, God
Is our,
bless her.
so we're going to have, what we've come to look forward to every June is our annual facilities update.
And
So-
I printed out hard copies.
Oh,
if you
great.
guys
That's
want it,
perfect.
because I
Thank
couldn't
you.
get it in the packet in time, so. Yes, every year. Okay, so I think everyone here, maybe with the exception of Matt, has been through this, so I think you all will remember a lot of it. The evaluation methodology we use is to discuss with the building administration, the district maintenance personnel, superintendent, outside sources. And we also use what I call the facility audit tool, which, oh my gosh, it's going to do this again, it's freezing. Okay, maybe we're just going to look at the hard copy. Mark is not
I
over.
was gonna say, where'd Mark go?
Well, we'll look at
That's
the
okay, we
hard
can look at
copy.
the,
All right, so the facility audit tool, which is probably page 3-ish. Hey, Mark,
You've heard us talking.
She's
can
frozen.
you see why my computer is frozen, maybe? I don't know if you have it. So this is a spreadsheet that lists most of the systems in the school, and we ask the building maintenance supervisor to rate each of the systems, two different kinds of ratings. One is the functional condition of the system, and the other is based on a safety or a compliance concern that they may have with that particular system. So this is only part of it. I didn't put the entire thing on there, and it's only an example. It doesn't really have the numbers.
so
in
the
it, but
objective
that's what
here
it
is to give you a prioritization of where to
Yes.
invest the resources?
Exactly, right. And then, so anything that comes out with both of those ratings as a 5 or less, we put in the first round of the budget. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to make it all the way through. In fact, I can guarantee you that probably half of the things won't make it through because there are usually a number of things. But that's our methodology. So next are the areas of concern, and we can look at, awesome. We can look at the middle school. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Here's a list. Some of these you have seen before, some of them are new. So the elevator we just talked about tonight. The water system is a favorite to have on this list because I know someday we're going to really need to do something with that. There are bathroom upgrades in the gym that we need to address. There is one piece of paving that the principal would like to have done in the back. The fire panel replacement, which is actually being done this summer. We have HVAC controls and fans. There are issues with that. Sofas, tables and chairs for the NPR, that one of the phases is happening this summer. We're looking at ductwork cleaning, the AC units in the admin offices are very old and starting to falter. Classroom flooring, there are many, mostly in the north end, but many classrooms down there are in need of replacement. The exterior lighting, we need some new lighting in dark spots, and we need some replaced. The intercom is on its last legs, literally, so that's going to probably be one of the priorities in this next cycle. The interior lighting for the NPR and gym is starting to be an issue. Alarm system upgrades, we have alarms that go off more than they should, so there's some issues there. The life skills area, looking to upgrade that to be a little bit more useful for the students that use that area. And then the good old day tank replacement that.
We all got to see the day tank.
Yeah, in the high school.
No, that's right. Oh, we haven't seen the middle school one.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Is it
can't
similar?
wait.
Yes.
I'm thinking the day tanks are gonna be huge, but one of them was like.
It's like this.
Like, how much does that cost?
Yeah.
Like, are you serious?
It's just a
We
little
get the
thing like
message.
this
We get
in
the
high
message.
school.
Right. Okay, then the next page is also the middle school, the hallway flooring. If you look at it closely, you'll see a lot of cracks in there, so that needs to be replaced at some point. We have a couple of spots on the roof that need some repairs. The north end doors need some security upgrades. And we have aging electrical panels that need to be replaced. We are going to start an LED light replacement cycle. Our water filling stations are not chilled, so that's a request that they've made. We have some repairs that we need to make with air handling equipment, exterior door repairs similar to what you saw in the high school, and window repairs in the north end especially. So that's pretty much what the middle school is looking at. Oh my gosh, it's stuck again. Okay, back to the paper. High school next. So we have restrooms. They're trying to install hand dryers in all of the restrooms to cut down on, or to increase cleanliness and cut down on just a mess that is in every bathroom without them. There are also HVAC upgrades that we're looking at in the high school. Ceilings, I think the committee got first-hand view of the locker room. That was exciting. They have some real need for ceilings there.
Yeah, that was, it looked like a scene from Mad Max.
It was just like, no, like
Was it just
That
the
one
boys'
we
locker
just-
room, or was it both?
Well,
Well-
it's both, but I showed
More
him the
so.
boys first. Not first, but only
it's,
the boys.
I mean, I have to say that, I will honestly say that locker room was, for me personally, appalling. For the amount of money we spend on the schools, it's like,
That one room does stand out from the rest of the building.
it's just like, really?
The rest of the building
Really?
was relatively
so
fine.
many
That
great,
one,
I guess I
that
go back
looked
to so
like-
many great things happen in the school, and, you know, that surface, you know, you see the classrooms, and you're like, but I'm like, really, kids in here? Like, no. I'm looking up because the ceiling was just,
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so, and our roof sections for the high school, you guys are aware that we're trying to do one of those every year.
Mhm.
Our parking lots need some attention for sure, some are not even paved. And we'll also be starting an LED replacement cycle in the high school. The main office security, we went through what that looked like to meet the Homeland Security request. Day tank replacements are happening here as well. And window seals are an issue on some of the windows in the high school. We have masonry work, which I showed them as well, where some of the lacrosse balls have gouged out areas of the masonry. Window screens are always an issue. Some windows do not have any screens at all. We have missing restroom partitions in some of the bathrooms. There are interior doors that definitely need to be replaced. Similar to the middle school, we have the main office air conditioners that are old and faltering. I think there was a repair on them made just this week. Storage shed that's primarily for tables and chairs that we have purchased to reduce the cost of rentals whenever we have testing. Some of the wood fence is falling apart at the high school, and we have some outdoor insect control issues, mostly like beehives or wasp hives. And sealants are needed as well. And continuing with the high school again, window ballasts, ductwork cleaning, the egress issue, which becomes more of a priority now that we have a turf field and issues that would definitely help that situation.
What's the
Energy.
issue there?
Well, just that we don't have a decent egress, and now you're gonna put a turf field in there, so that just means that that area.
More
could be
flow, more
used.
traffic?
Yes.
Okay.
Egress outside, you think?
Yes, well, yeah, because the only in and out of the high school is, where we all go in and out. So we'd like to do a study and find out if we can have the egress.
Maybe we can use the right of way to,
There you go.
Paid for it, right?
Yeah. So that is something that will likely get the National Regional Planning Commission involved to give us a quote on that. Energy efficiencies to follow sort of in Hollis's footsteps. I'm in the process of getting a quote on how much the study would cost for an energy efficiency review of both the co-op, and I'm going to do
so
that.
can
in
the
both
electric
ways.
companies come in and do an energy review for free?
No, yes, what they're doing is coming in to evaluate the building, and they'll tell me how much it will cost to do a detailed study. That's how we
Okay.
did that,
All right.
did it for Hollis. And that way, at the end of the study, we know exactly what we need to do to make the adjustments.
So, and that's the same thing you could consider, and once the study, what that study would do would be to evaluate like the best options
Right.
for like, is solar the right thing, or air source
Right.
heat pumps the right source?
Exactly. And they have many experts that they bring to the table, and that's what the cost is for their time to do the analysis.
But it could also help
Right.
you prioritize. I mean, because that's another source of information for you. Because a subset of all these things you mentioned deal with the energy audit.
Yes,
topics within the
absolutely.
energy audit.
Yes, a lot of these things would probably be part of the things that need to be done
Right.
as a result of the energy audit. Okay, security cameras, we are replacing some this summer that absolutely don't work, and we have plans for others. It'll be a phase-in. If you recall, we had
That's right,
done a
right.
grant for most of this, but it's looking more and more like that grant is not coming through. So we will have to fund that ourselves.
Is that the one that was gonna be like 50% of the total
Yes,
budget there, like
20%.
40 grand or something like that?
20-80%.
2080, okay.
Yeah. The intercom as well in the high school is on its last legs as well. Storm drain repairs are needed, window blinds, plumbing fixtures. There's painting that has not been done in the high school for 20 years in some places. So that's a definite need. They want to do that in phases, as well as tile flooring. The committee got to see some of the tile flooring, and there is a pretty significant need in some of the areas. Again, a phased approach to that. There are exterior doors that definitely need to be replaced or repaired. They have some big gaps, they have rust, they have, damage to them as well. Air handling repairs are also needed here. We need some sanitary sewer repairs and soffits.
What is soffits? Yeah, both schools.
I'm sorry?
What is the concern with soffits?
Just that they're old and they need to be replaced.
Exterior soffits?
Yes, exterior,
Okay.
yeah. So those are the areas of concern that we've been able to gather from the facility audit tool and the other discussions with the administrators. And we've broken them out. These are just big ballpark estimates at this time. And as we get closer to actually hitting the budget, we can refine those costs and understand more about each one. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these in detail, but the next pages that you see, I think
We're
there's
doing the
like
same
4,
here, so a little bit.
2, 3, 4. Yeah,
That's
there's
105
4
pages
pages
right
of
there.
under 20 prioritized by year expenses. They're all the expenses that are all of the areas of concern that we just went over. And on the fifth one of these charts is the over 20. And those are laid out in, estimates, absolutely on this page.
For future reference, can you add a totals line into these tables?
Well, that would be the next.
It's down here.
Final
The
page.
final slide. has
Final
it.
page.
Yeah.
Well, no, one thing is to know what the number is. Another
Yes.
thing is to make it easier to follow, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, I can certainly put it underneath. So those are the totals that we're looking at now, and, I'm sure you guys guys are aware that we usually end up pushing things to another year. And
Yep.
that's what we're looking at this point.
So is there gonna be a perfect
Yeah.
storm between the Hollis Transportation leaving and when we are exposed to that $1.5 million?
Well, probably not, because we'll probably end up pushing things
Okay.
to another year. So I'm sure those are all conversations that have to be had during the budget process.
Yep.
And the very, very last slide is just many of these, all of these things are in the areas of concern, but these are things that are going to require, all of these things are going to require more discussion as well.
Yeah, there's some big hitters here,
Yep.
especially with the egress, and that's just ongoing, but, the energy efficiency piece. I think absolutely necessary and great, I think, from a Hollis School District perspective. There'll be so much great information that'll help the process,
Absolutely.
because what they're seeing at Hughes and HBS as a result of the solar is that they're like eliminating the electrical supply charges because of the solars. And so that's great. They're working on relieving the delivery charges and figuring out, why they aren't commensurately dropping and things like that. So there'll be a lot of great information about how successful those efficiencies can be.
Yes, by the time we get to that point, we'll have a lot of data. From
Yeah.
Can we
Hollis.
have, invite someone to come and speak to progress along those lines?
I don't
someone
think it's
involved
way
with the
too
project
early
or-
to.
Well, you mean
Oh,
about
for Hollis?
For the Hollis, yeah, from the Hollis
progress at
district.
Hollis?
We probably could, but probably not until the fall or the fall, because the person, the expert, is actually coming to speak to the Hollis Budget Committee the week of July 8th.
Yeah, I know, it means like the
But
next meeting, I
he's-
mean sometime in the next few months.
Yeah, it'll have to be like September or later, but I can
Mhm.
probably arrange for that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they're really knowledgeable. They have a lot of really great information. They're actually kind of coming back and reevaluating
Right.
some of the things that didn't get done, if there's still a need for them and things like
Exactly.
that, because of some of the efficiencies that they're seeing.
And
So,
the good news is the same week that he's coming to speak to the Hollis Budget Committee, he's also evaluating both of the co-op buildings and both of the Brookline buildings.
Oh, that's
So he may
great.
be able to give you a little insight. I doubt he'll have anything
Yeah,
at
yeah,
all that's
but-
useful, but.
yeah, they're really, the individuals we've worked with through Hollis, they've been great.
Yes.
Explaining, providing information, explaining things. So, yeah, that would be a good exercise.
Okay. Let's see what his schedule is in September-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's it.
Wow,
Excellent.
it's always such great news.
Now, wait a minute, you died to see this every year.
I know, we do.
We don't
good
wanna
now.
hear bad news in the middle of our, development of the budget. We wanna hear bad news now.
Yeah,
By the time we
exactly.
get
So by
them,
the time
I
we
would've
get there, we're
forgotten
like,
about
oh
it.
yeah, we heard about that already.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like the big hitters here are the egress and the energy efficiency.
And what I-
And those are the two ones I'd like to hear a lot more about. The egress, I have only the
Absolutely.
vaguest of
Well,
ideas.
we
And both
really-
of them have only vague
Well, I
ideas
mean,
what that
the
is.
egress really is, all I know to tell you is that having one way in and out is really gonna lead to a disaster at some point. For instance, we have a very active emergency management team that
Yep.
we meet with the fire and police on a regular basis. It's a district-wide or all-district group that gets together.
Yep.
And, they pose questions like,
Mhm.
what would happen if you need to get an ambulance or a fire truck up to the high school during dismissal?
Yep. Uh-huh.
That's just.
Or if there's an
not
emergency and
happening.
everybody's flowing out and they need to flow in.
Right,
you know.
exactly. So the need for an additional
Oh,
egress is
Jesus.
really, really
Yep.
a high priority.
All right.
Cheaper for
All right.
But there's nothing I can really say about it until we engage someone to help us evaluate that, and that would be Nashua Regional Planning Commission.
Yep, all right,
And I
cool.
think-
But that gives me a better understanding
Sure,
of
okay.
what the concerns are for.
We should think about putting a helipad here too.
That's what I just said, be cheaper.
We, I would say that probably the first time we looked at this
Land in the
plan,
field.
the biggest area of concern was roof replacement. And I think what we see is like how this, can help manage those costs. Because when we were first looking at that, we were like, how is that ever going to happen?
Right,
And so I think this really does help us kind of broaden the scope, look at the things we need to focus on immediately and kind of, work through them. Because, we've been able to kind of moderate the impact of the roof peak because
Exactly. Because we've
it's broken
decided
out
we
and
can do it in phases.
Exactly,
And I think that's what
exactly.
has happened in the past is, oh, well, that just costs too much money. And we
Right.
let it go, we let it go, we let it go.
Right,
So,
right.
yes, I agree. Because of doing this, I have started doing a lot more phased projects.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that is a benefit to all of us.
I'm about to finish my bottle of water.
Okay.
High school masonry work, you're saying the crossballs?
Yeah, there were students, not necessarily current students, but they would hit the balls on the,
yes.
the entrance to the back.
Gymnasium?
Yeah.
Oh, above on the east.
Yeah.
Above, you see
Yeah.
little divots in there.
Yeah, that's just styrofoam.
Yeah.
Swear to God, that's what that is. That's ether, that's what I do for a living.
Okay.
Brick goes up so high, you're talking about the light color at the top?
Ah,
That's just
Yeah.
styrofoam.
Oh,
You
is
stick
it?
styrofoam to it and put like a cementous base on it.
Oh,
That's why those
interesting.
balls dent that.
I see. Well, and now it's degrading even more because
Right.
there's a dent there.
So replacing the
get water in
styrofoam
there.
should be a lot cheaper than replacing the brick.
Oh,
Obviously.
absolutely. You won't have to replace it because that was a crossball, it's gonna damage your brick. You know?
Right,
But,
right,
you know,
right.
You'll see, because I've seen those for years, all the holes
Yes,
up there from the
yes.
balls, I'm like, but your budget is $2,500 to fix that.
That's the estimate that we have.
It's low.
Okay.
Just
And it
saying.
could be, these are ballpark, remember.
Okay,
We
well,
we tend to be optimistic in projecting.
That's not even a lift cost.
Okay.
Sorry.
okay, talk
we
to
did have a
Dave
Debbie
to refine
Downer.
that cost a little bit.
Yeah.
And, well, thank you, Kelly. Again, it just,
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
it highlights so many things.
Like she's put her resignation in.
So many things.
And I did say to Kelly, like, I haven't been in the high school in a long time, and I just, you kind of walk around and go, yeah, it's over 20 years old.
It's starting to look 20 years old.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly,
thing. Yeah.
exactly,
There's parts
so,
of it that are showing
yeah,
their age.
yeah, so.
Okay,
It's just array of, great.
let's get a
Maybe
bond,
we
4
should pull
million
out
bucks
last
and pay
year's
for
and
it.
see what that looked like, and
Yeah,
maybe
right.
we'd feel better about this one, so, I don't know.
Just do it, yeah, I guess
And
that's
so,
a good
actually,
ball.
we.
Yeah, right.
What was
You know,
the,
done 1 year.
I should just, I
Good for high school.
closed the maintenance expendable trust documentation.
More bad news, huh?
Yeah, like where our
Well,
balance,
balance.
what our
Oh,
balance, what
I
we
think
put
it's-
in and what our balance
Well,
was.
remember that we're taking out of it the middle school fire panel and the roof.
Right,
So I think we're putting 75 into it, we're taking
95 out.
And we started with 110.
One-
Yeah,
122 we started with,
So
and
we ended up,
resulting's
we're ending
92.
up with 92.
It's, yeah, the resulting says 92, 175.
And I don't know if you noticed on the audit, there is a roof coming up that is, one section is 166.
Yes, I did see
Yes.
that. It was
There's
out a little
that.
bit, so I chose to kind of just say, oh, all right, well, we have a few more years for that one, so.
So is there any reason why you chose 20 to be like the threshold between these types of projects and other types of projects? Is that
No,
like the
it's-
medium? Is
It's just a base to start with, because we have so many small things, I want to be able to manage those in this way.
Okay.
Because if I just put it in the budget, they will be forgotten.
Right.
And so I want to be able to manage those.
And I think that's another thing we need to talk about a little bit in the budgeting itself, because the way we budget allows for some of these things to be in the operating budget, and then some of them to be financed within the expendable trust. But the way Hollis manages the expendable trust is different, and it essentially removes the capital improvement items from the operating budget and rolls everything through the maintenance trust. So you'd see a much larger number there, but a commensurate
Yep.
shift from the operating budget
Sure.
side. So if there was $150,000 in the operating budget, we would kind of move all capital improvement and maintenance items out of it, and then say 150,000 plus the 75 that we put in this year. Now that's 225 that goes into the maintenance trust, and then that allows everything to go through that expendable trust and nothing to kind of be hidden and have that like kind of budget that within the operating budget
But I also
itself.
think it makes it easier to manage the overall, maintenance fund.
Yes, because then everything
you more
related to
flexibility.
maintenance is going through that fund.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So that would be, we would have, just kind of have to talk about that a little bit more
That makes
because.
sense to me.
Right, and because it's a significant change to how we bring the budget forward.
Right.
So rather than saying, we want 25,000 to put into the maintenance trust or 75,000 to put into the maintenance trust, we'd be saying, we want 250 or $300,000 to go into the maintenance trust. Again, you'd commensurately see an adjustment, and, you'd have to kind of restate last year's budget to show, because it would make it look like a decrease in the.
So that would be.
You have to do those kind of comparisons for the first year that you make that shift. But it, especially as you look toward larger ticket items, it really does put the onus of, like, explaining to the legislative body, like, these are the things we need done, and we need your vote to support all of these initiatives.
So that
and
would
the
be a
things that need
different
to be
warrant
changed.
article. It would probably be easier to explain and to digest in terms of the amount and
Well,
justify.
We have that warrant article now. It's just, to Darlene's point, what we put in the maintenance trust is kind of minimal.
It's kind of like the overflow. It's
Yeah,
kind of like the,
right.
Right.
it was originally, originally it was, let's have some, additional,
amount in
a
case we
reserve
need it,
amount.
right.
But it's becoming more and more like, we can't fit these things into the operating budget. We need them and to kind of fund with this in and out.
Right, and we've started using it that way this year.
Right.
By paying for the fire panel and the roof section.
So-
Right.
So when you're gonna pass the total budget at the town hearings and you have that 10% limit, does that allow, to give you more flexibility, or that doesn't matter?
No, it's all,
Yeah,
it wouldn't,
change that.
it wouldn't change
It
that.
wouldn't
It all
change.
gets added together.
Okay,
It's just a matter of, instead of using the general fund to house that $200,000, you're using a maintenance trust. So you're just shifting, but there's a mindset shift to it as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think it's a good idea to do that because it helps explain and it helps highlight.
Well, it
Where
seems
we
to
are
work
in the
really
key
well in
items.
the Hollis School District.
Right.
Because I've never had any voters hardly question it because it is so transparent.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But, still, we're talking about, really, all this stuff it's not necessarily regular maintenance, but we have a certain amount of maintenance that we have to do every year, and it's this project, it's that project, and every year there's new projects. It's not like it's a one-time, something unusual coming up. It's a regular feature of every year of we need to go through, and there's always stuff that needs to be taken care of year to year. And to me, it feels like pulling it out of the operating budget the operating budget should include your regular maintenance, and that's really what this stuff is. It's nothing really extraordinary, like adding a new elevator or something like that.
It's just things that should have been maintained or budgeted for 20 years. You know what I mean?
But
Instead of waiting and all of a sudden,
it's-
the school's 25 years old, you've got 20-year-old paint in
So-
there. and
so-
now you-
so maybe we
It feels
can
like
change
the
the-
operating budget should be covering.
Yeah,
Some
but
things.
maintenance is
Things.
maintenance and repairs is repairs, okay?
Yeah, but
So maybe the new projects that say, okay, we're gonna save some energy, so we're gonna convert everything to LED, that could be in the operating budget, that's not necessarily maintenance or repair. But, the roof is repair, replacing faucets is maintenance, because the existing faucet you're replacing still works, right? So, let's be consistent with the terminology, maybe the trust fund needs to have a different name, I don't know, if that's what we're gonna do. But it seems to me that bundling all these things together in one place is a lot better in the long run. Because there's more transparency, people understand it. If there's a major issue to be discussed, people see it right away, and there's some good discussion about it. So I just think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I view the trust funds as kind of like our rainy day savings account, where we're saving up for the big ticket items that,
Yeah.
okay, we know we have a $500,000 thing coming up, which that shouldn't be in the
Well-
operating budget, that, we're saving a little bit every year because we know it's coming up in 5 years. So that comes out of the trust. So that's kind of how I
And we got
view the
$4 million
trust.
coming up in the next 4 years, right?
Yes. There's a lot.
That's
That
a lot
was
of money.
that
A lot
was
of money.
my thought on how the trust was gonna work too, but like this year, we're taking out money already to do repairs that we knew were coming instead of capital, yeah.
Well, it's like, 4 years, you're gonna lose $4 million.
I mean, that's what it is.
Repairs and maintenance or whatever, but
Yeah.
if you don't start planning every year for
Mhm.
15, 20 years from now, you're gonna be sitting down again with the same $4 million with a whole new crew here, probably. And trying to figure out how you're gonna get that
Mhm.
taken care of in 3 years.
Right.
And unfortunately, from year one, that should have been budgeted as a yearly maintenance thing,
Yeah.
knowing in 20 years, the roof's gonna be,
An advantage of being able to take some of these large projects and dividing them up into stages is that, you can spread them out over many years. But once you've done that, though, you know that you've got these existing costs that are going to be going on year after year. And at that point, it seems more appropriate they should be in an operating budget than in a trust fund. But some of this is semantics, though.
It's only $4 million.
It all comes from the same place.
It does. Yes.
I'm also considering it as an ease of budget development, so that there's consistency. I don't know how Brookline manages.
It's sort of a hybrid, because
It's kind
they
of a-
have the maintenance trust as well, and they use sort of the big ticket items
They use it
for
specific,
that.
so we all kind of
Plus-
do it a little bit differently.
Yeah,
Each
plus they
district does it a little
also
bit
do
different.
what you guys are doing, they have maintenance section.
Yeah.
for, sometimes there's no budget for the other maintenance things, and they're just using the trust, but,
Right. So it's a
So-
little,
so-
so it's still kind of a little bit of
So
both.
for example, if we were to use that 20K as a divider, say, let's say it was
Oh.
5K or less is the operating budget, 5K or more is the maintenance trust and repair
Yeah,
trust fund.
assign a dollar
that
value
way
to
as
it,
well,
yeah. Yeah, that's something to consider.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, topic for further discussion.
Yes.
That was good input, and we can kind of think about those kind of things and maybe how many under 20 projects we have. So where are we? 245 versus 312.
It's 4 million, 3.8.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, take your time. I'm sure if you have any questions about any specific project, Holly would be happy to address any of your questions or
Yes.
concerns.
They be energy efficient.
Oh,
$1.6
that's
million.
gonna be,
How much are we gonna save over time?
well,
Yeah,
that'll
that's the
require,
interesting part.
that'll require some look. I mean, if we really sit down and really look at our electric bills and our,
that's what-
oil, propane,
Yeah.
and
That's
that's
what
what
the
it,
guy will do.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
they do, and they have
Yep.
the ROIs, and, you really on at least the scale that Hollis has, so I would assume it would be similar for Brookline. It's proven to be a good investment
savings.
so far,
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
And then we're just like, are we just like 1 full year? Have we had 1 full year?
We've had 1.5.
1.5
I'd
years,
say.
so,
So
yeah.
you're just recognizing the savings now, kind
Yeah.
of, really.
Well-
And then there's some glitches
Yeah,
as
there's
well,
some-
as Darlene mentioned, they have now discovered there's demand charges that we didn't even know were there because we've been saving money, and now that sticks out like a big sore thumb.
Right,
So
as
they're-
another area to kind of
The electric
investigate,
bills have like
why
3 or
is
4
that happening?
components.
Yeah,
Right.
The
yeah.
actual use, the amount, when you use it and how fast you use it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right, so now they're analyzing those demand charges and trying to minimize them or get rid of them if they
Right.
can.
In Hollis, did they say like a turnaround time of when you make back the money invested?
Yeah, it was a very short turnaround
Yeah, I
time,
can't
if I
remember.
recall. Yeah, it was.
I
I
don't
don't remember exactly, we have to pull out all that documentation, but it
Yeah,
was,
a few years and it's.
yeah, it was,
it was
it was,
a few
I was
years.
gonna say it was under 5, so.
Yeah, I was gonna
was
say
definitely-
5 or
yeah,
6
yeah.
at the most, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Let them be guinea pigs
All
first,
right.
then we'll
Yeah.
follow
All
up.
right.
Yes.
That's why I think it's take time to do this, because well, by the time we
Yes.
get to this in the budget, we'll have data. and,
Right, exactly, yeah,
and
it is
there-
good timing.
And the first number is just how much will it cost to do the study?
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah, so-
right.
that. And then we'll find out what is needed, and then there's another cost there.
Right, and then I was gonna say, when the project in Hollis first started, I mean, they were honestly headed in a completely different
Yes,
direction.
absolutely. they
And
were.
then funded the study, and it was like, okay, no, we're doing this instead. So it
Right.
really was, you know,
Money well invested.
money
It really
very
was.
well spent
Good.
to really, you know, evaluate what the best option was. And what they're doing might not be the best option.
Absolutely.
You know, so.
And that's why, you know, Dick Henry is the guy who will be doing this, and he brings in several different experts on different things, as well as his own expertise to get that information.
How much does it cost to do that study, or?
In Hollis, it cost $100,000.
Uh-huh.
And then their bond, I can't remember exactly, it's $300,000 a year, but I forget what the
I feel like it was under.
$2.8 million.
Oh, it was
that's what
2.8,
was.
that's
How many buildings?
two.
But
Like,
payback
one
that
of them
investment
is
in 5
very
years.
old as well, you have to understand that that
No-brainer,
one is,
The primary.
I would have knocked the whole building down, start over again.
it was cheaper to do this.
Really?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Those are expensive.
The heck with heritage, I don't know.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
Yeah, the primary school
Just
had
kidding.
an R value that was basically non-existent.
Yeah.
So now it's
Wow.
very high, yeah. So,
Good.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right.
Any other items, issues, questions? Just to reiterate, we do not have a July meeting. We will have a 5th week of August meeting on the 29th, Brian, you said.
Yep.
Um,
We'll also be doing the walkthrough of the middle school.
Yes,
then.
so we'll do that a little bit earlier. We'll do that in August as well. If I hear of anything, I will be sure to give you updates. I will ask
Please.
Ann any just whatever legislative changes, any big news as it comes up. I don't know. Construction will be
No.
underway. I don't know. And we'll get some insight from Andy on the right-of-way and things like that. So if
Yeah,
anything
when he
like
gets,
that comes up.
he's at a conference when he gets back.
Yeah,
But that's all
Yeah.
done behind us anyway.
yeah,
There was a mention earlier of the bill that changed the procedures for SB2.
yeah.
For it. I did look it up. It changed the procedure just to go to SB2, did not change the procedures to repeal SB2. That still goes on the official
Oh.
ballot.
Wow. Thank you. Great.
Yep. So
Okay.
basically, whatever system you use in place is the one that you use to change to go to a different
Yeah.
system.
Okay. Okay, great.
Huh?
Dave, would you like to give us
813,
an update?
phenomenal, great, everything but this, but.
But it's good work. It's good work. We just
We
don't
like the
really like what it
messenger.
says, but it's good work, so. Okay, great. Well, everyone, at this point, I'll wish everyone a good summer and would appreciate a motion to adjourn from
So-
Dave, seconded by Brian. All those in favor? Unanimous again. Amazing. Thank you.
Great.
Sun's still up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for the tour today.
Have a
too.
great summer.
Showing us everything.
Glad they finally got into a room.
Congratulations.
Everybody always thinks that there's,
Have a great
somebody
summer.
came in.
Congratulations.
Hey, is this off?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Graduation week.
And
And then
Are we
go
off?
to the-
Is he here? Oh, we're still at.
I haven't really met her,
These will be
so,
quicker
but
because
she
there's
came
not a
in.
lot tonight.
like this.
There wasn't a lot tonight.